And today's guest on the Financial Planner Life podcast is Paul Tate. He is the Global Head of Compliance for Hoxton Capital Management. He's based over here in Dubai with me. And today he's going to talk about multi-jurisdiction financial planning and the compliance that surrounds it. We also talk about his own career journey, why he loves living in Dubai, and why it's quite cool to be a digital nomad financial planner. You're going to love this episode. Cheers. So Paul, thank you so much for joining me today on the Financial Planner Life podcast. You are the, I think I got this right, Global Head of Compliance.
Indeed.
Fantastic. So I tell you what, let's kick things off then, because compliance in an international financial advice firm must be a bit of a head scratcher at times.
It is indeed, yeah. For sure.
So let's, God, it must be tough enough just looking after one firm and dealing with the FCA in the UK, for example. So a lot of my audience will be from the UK. So this will be really interesting for them to understand. And I think it'll be really interesting for any advisor thinking about becoming an international advisor and thinking like, well, what actually is in place to protect me and what's in place to protect the clients? Because I've heard bad things or something like that, okay? I had the pleasure of looking under the bonnet. I had the pleasure of meeting you before I joined, and we had a good look at it. And for me, I felt satisfied that as a business, it was doing everything it should do regulatory-wise to protect advisors, protect the clients, and do the right things. And the more I got talking to you, the more I started to understand, wow, like it's a lot of work, right?
There's a lot of moving parts, for sure.
There's a lot of moving parts. Exactly that. So let's today create an educational piece for the Financial Planner Life podcast. Let's educate people about what it is an international firm has to do, what you do in your job role when it comes to compliance to make sure you're squeaky clean, right? Brilliant. Well, let's kick things off. So just quick introduction, like how did you get into compliance?
So I actually started out as a financial advisor myself. I was an advisor in South Africa. Didn't need to get out of bed to pay the bills. A little bit bored. And then an opportunity opened up here in Dubai with, funny enough, one of our competitors. You know, I've always been someone that is, driven by, ethics and, have an impact in people's lives. It's one of the reasons why I joined financial planning in the first place, is that I knew that I could make a positive impact in people's lives. So, that moment you have that meeting with someone, their life course changes for either the best, for better or worse, right? And I knew that I could change people's life course for the better. I felt like I wasn't able to do enough of that in my financial advisory role. And luckily, a opportunity opened up along sort of my path to Hoxton that enabled me to go down the route of compliance. And I really saw the benefit of the role that has within the organization for a financial services firm and the impact that you can actually make in people's lives. So instead of touching, a maximum of maybe 200, 300, clients, depending on, the advisor, right? I can actually touch tens of thousands of people's lives and really make a difference in, whether they know it or not. Probably would never know that there was a hand in the background that was essentially sort of guiding the direction, of the advice and the quality of advice throughout the entire business. So, I'm very fortunate to be in the position that I am to be able to make that impact, and I'm very proud of it.
Fantastic. So how long have you been at Hoxton for?
I've now been, I believe, 5 years now. This is finishing my fifth year.
Brilliant. So the international head of compliance. I know I keep changing the title of your
director of compliance.
Director of compliance. It's very important. I put director of compliance in there.
Yeah.
Just give people an insight into the job role then. Let's just quickly, you've been here 5 years, you said?
5 years, yeah.
5 years, okay. So pretty much since inception, because the business has been going for 6 years, right? So just tell us what you've been doing then. What is your job role? What are you overseeing?
So I think probably just give you a run of how I got to where I am right now.
Yeah.
Around the sense that when we started out with Hoxton, when I joined Hoxton, I think I was employee number 34 or something like that. And, we had an office in Abu Dhabi, and that was the extent of it. Then we ended up becoming licensed in, the UK, and then here, and then I believe it was Australia, the US, Cyprus, and then South Africa. being able to jump from, license event to license event, I've had to upskill and learn that particular sort of jurisdiction sort of from the beginning, right? So it's not like I've been thrust suddenly into, now you need to know 5 different regulatory jurisdictions. I've actually grown with the business, which has, been beneficial, and why I sort of consider myself to be fairly lucky to have been in the position that I am, right? From that perspective, I have a keen understanding, and as we've built out the different jurisdictions and we've built out the different back office staff within it, we've ended up deploying, compliance officers and back office staff and sort of support functions within that sort of compliance framework. And so as a result, the burden isn't massive. It's not like I'm a one-man band that is, pulling the strings in all the different jurisdictions, responsible to every single regulator in every jurisdiction. That's not the case, because we've built it as we've gone.
That's really good. So if you've got a growth mindset, then are you the type of individual, if Hoxton's a growing company, right? It's been going for 6 years. It's doing exceptionally well. And as you've mentioned, it's now multi-licensed, multi-jurisdictions, different countries, different regulators. You've come on in and you've built a team, right? I think you have to be a certain type of individual as well to want to do that. Are you quite a growth-minded individual, or are you thinking, Chris, slow down, you're killing me here?
I mean, I think compliance by nature is like, well, let's just get the puzzle pieces in place first before we, go, full on. I think that what's nice about, Chris as a leader is that he brings that balance, right? So like he brings that balance to me where I'm like, slow down, put the brakes, let's get this, done. Whereas he brings out that go, that drive. We'll get it right, don't worry, but don't stand still pondering, right?
Yeah.
As a catalyst to the growth of the business, it's definitely been down to Chris. Similar to like a football team, right? Like you'd have a manager, and ordinarily a manager would have been the big influential sort of person within that football team. But now in the modern game, you'd have to have sporting directors, you'd have to have back office staff, you'd have to have this supporting the manager so that he can actually focus on the things that he's really good at. I think what Chris has done really well is, as that sort of driver, he's put people that are good at what they do in the appropriate departments to help him drive that sort of business. So, from a growth mindset perspective, I do like to move things forward, but Chris has definitely helped enable that sort of, for me personally, as a person, as a professional. So it's been a good kind of counterbalance.
Fantastic. Obviously, looking out the window here, we've got a pretty insane view of that's the marina in the background, isn't it?
Yep, never gets old. I actually lived just around the corner at one point, and it was lovely to be able to sit on the couch on a Friday afternoon, because it used to be weekends, Friday to Saturday here. They've now shifted actually to a Western work week kind of a thing. But to be able to look out over that view, it's still mind blowing.
Yeah. It's great. The city obviously is massively growing on me, and when you see it from different perspectives, it's great. Like you could spend too much time in one area and think, this is horrible, I don't like this at all, there's too many cars, I feel like I'm on a bloody motorway. And then 5 minutes down the road, get a bit of elevation, and it's like, oh my God. Like when I first came here, I stayed on the marina, and like had a balcony on the marina, overlooking the marina, and I thought, wow, during the day I went and sat on the balcony and just was blown away by how beautiful it was, and I thought, this is definitely where I want to be. And then obviously nighttime came and all the lights came on, and I was just like, this is insane. Like it was so cool. And then from the marina, I walked across the road and I was on the beach. And I was just like, but then you got the hustle bustle and energy of a city. I just think like, I didn't come out here to Dubai to think that I would move to Dubai, and I'm moving here in August. And I'm working for a Dubai financial planning company. So my question to you is, why Dubai? Why do you position yourself in Dubai as a compliance manager that's global? Why choose Dubai?
Well, I think it's a little bit misleading saying that we're a Dubai financial planning company. We're a global financial planning company.
Okay, yeah.
We just happen to be here in Dubai as our headquarters. Because of the fact that we obviously sort of skirt around the edges here. Sort of there's tax benefits of being here.
Yep.
I mean that we don't pay personal income tax, which is great. But there are pros and cons with everywhere you live, right? It's also from a time zoning perspective. So I get into the office in the morning, and I can speak to Australia in the morning, and then the US in the evening. So I can speak to all the different jurisdictions which we operate in within the same sort of calendar day. which is very beneficial from an operational perspective.
Yep.
So yeah, that's essentially one of the key reasons. I mean, obviously on top of that, it's a really safe city. It's a really nice place to live. I remember going back home and needing to pick something up from a grocery store on a Sunday, and then going out and everything's closed, and being like, what's going on here? Like, everything's normally open in Dubai. I can get whatever I want whenever I need it. You also have the benefit of, if you want to do something on any given day, there's always something to do. No matter what time of day, what time of the day it is, you can find something. I mean, you can go to Cirque du Soleil, or you can do different. There's all kinds of like opera-esque stuff that's on the go. There's something happening within the city all the time. Yeah, which is really exciting. Particularly for someone who came here single, now have a family.
Yeah, right.
You have that full scope of something to do for people who are single, all the way through to kids. Yeah, it's a really nice place to sort of raise kids.
Fabulous. Like, I bring my wife over here, and I bring my daughter over here, who's 8. Fingers crossed, I'm going to hear back today about acceptance into a school called Arbor, which is like an eco school, and they've got a Galapagos tortoise.
Platypus?
Not platypus. Giant tortoise.
Yeah,
Galapagos.
I'm not even going to bother trying.
Darwin, his name is. Yeah. Really cool school with all these like eco domes, and I was blown away when I went in there just by the quality of the school. Right, as they were showing me around, I was just like, oh my god! It just felt lovely. It was calm. It was clean. There is a huge amount of focus on their well-being, the children's well-being. It didn't feel like a school in England. So when we talk about the tax, right, and over here you've got to pay, don't you, for schooling? Yeah. I was kind of like, in my head, I was like, I don't care. Like, I'm happy to pay for schooling if her schooling is this way. I'd rather pay for it than go be in England and the public school not being as good. Does that make sense? I'd rather not pay the tax in the UK and pay for schooling here. Makes total sense to me.
The tax here is schooling, right? We were mulling over that. Do we go back to the UK? Do we stay here? Because there's that essentially calculation that's running through your mind the entire time of tax versus schooling. Yeah. And I think you're right in what you're sort of saying, in that in the UK you're just beholden to the potential catchment area and the school that sort of is there and the postcode, right? Whereas here you do have a lot more consumer choice and freedom. Yeah. From that choice perspective, a lot of people think it's a authoritarian-esque state. You don't have freedoms. You do. We really do have a lot of freedoms that I think that potentially aren't really there even in democracies. Weirdly.
Do you know what? One of the things that I found quite interesting is the whole LGBTQ plus stance out here, right? And there's a massive amount of like a lot of people I know that are LGBTQ plus. But why are you going there for? It's terrible. There's 2 lady boys that I saw. I mean, we've got LGBTQ plus people around us in Hoxton. Yeah. It is here and it's not hidden. And I was just like, oh right, okay. So it's not what you think or what you're told. There isn't. Women walking around in bikinis down the beach. Do you know what I mean? The perception you have for it being really like strict, it doesn't feel that way.
Well, I think there's it's generally one of those ones where if you don't flaunt it. Yeah. Right. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are laws that are in place. That outlaw it. But there's an element of tolerance here around that as long as you don't flaunt it and flaunt the laws, and you don't you're accepted, you're welcome. Yeah. If you ended up trying to even though there are ladies in bikinis on the beach, right? If you end up trying to go nude on the beach, you're gonna get caught, right? That's flaunting it. That's throwing it in the face of.
Thanks for warning me, because that's like I was planning.
Is it a regular thing?
Oh yeah, I was up for that. Yeah,
you're hoping for the soft sand instead of the cobbled beaches in the UK, right?
Exactly. Right. Okay. Cool. So, just tell us a little bit about jurisdictions, the regulatory bodies that you're having to deal with, licenses. These are all words that you're sort of using. Let's just break it down for those that are listening. Okay. So, what sort of what regulations are we under as a global business? You mentioned licenses. What are they? Where are they? What do we have to go through? Jurisdictions, that sort of thing. Fire away.
So I'll start, let's go from east to west. So I'll start in Australia, where we are licensed with the Australian Securities and Investment Commission for providing financial advice. Across the business, we do not do discretionary. We are advised only. don't hold client money. It's not within our sort of scope at this point. I think there are discussions around the future sort of plans of what we do. Do we, open an asset management sort of branch, of the business and all these kinds of pieces? But that's, for the future. In the UAE, we have an entity that is licensed by the Securities and Commodities Authority. It's an onshore regulator. And then we are currently applying for licensing for the Dubai International Financial Centre, which is the DIFC. And their regulator within that financial free zone is the Dubai Financial Services Authority. Once again, Category 4, retail endorsement, advising and arranging, being the sort of permissions that we would be having there. And it's important to sort of acknowledge that there's different regulatory. It's a very unique regulatory landscape here in the UAE in that there's 5 different regulators. You have the 2 free zones being the DIFC, as I've previously mentioned, and then you have the Abu Dhabi Global Markets, which is regulated by the FSRA. I can't remember what they stand for again. Forgive me on that. If anyone's from there listening, I'm sorry. And then you have onshore regulators. So you'd have the Securities and Commodities Authority, you'd have the central bank, and then the Insurance Authority, which has been essentially bundled into the central bank. So quite like a fragmented regulatory kind of landscape, which is unusual. If you're coming from the UK, you'd have the Financial Conduct Authority, and then the I can't remember the Banking Prudential Authority is, but yeah, so you'd have those 2 regulatory authorities. So it's unique that you can do certain things in the certain territories onshore and free zone. The onshore regulator is the regulation is drafted in Arabic, so that's a unique kind of element for them as a regulator, and it's unique dealing with them because of that Arabic sort of tilt to it. Whereas the Dubai International Financial Centre has something that one would feel a little bit more used to coming from the UK, in that the laws and regulations are actually drafted in the similar vein as that of the FCA. So it's a lot easier to understand when you're coming from that environment and mindset. So we're looking forward to having that license within our within the stable. So. We can have that element of continuity, and I think that it's a real badge of honor to be licensed in the DIFC, and we're really looking forward to building out that element of the business focused on the GCC element. Then we also have the Financial Sector Conduct Authority in South Africa. So that's a recent license addition. Office in Cape Town, stunning place. I must admit, so as a South African, I'm naturally going to be biased towards that. Amazing place to live, amazing sort of food, and so forth. So we're looking at trying to once again, empower our advice force to be able to assist British expatriates that are living there, or South Africans that are looking to immigrate, and that being the sort of target market area there. And then moving into Cyprus, where we have our separate entity which is authorized by the CISEC, which is the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission. There we have a license for advising as well as transmission or receipt and transmission of orders. Sort of based upon the sort of MiFID framework, which a lot of people in the UK would have been aware of and privy to sort of prior to Brexit. I mean, it's still in place, but in a limited sort of scope. With the UK obviously, or the FCA being a primary driver within that legislative, push being MiFID within Europe. So we have passporting now across Europe off the back of that. So anyone on that Cyprus license can actually service clients across Europe through the freedom of service, I believe. Then we also have obviously our UK firm, which we are really putting a lot of time and effort into to sort of grow, expand, resourcing. We're really growing, and from a compliance perspective, we're also really putting a lot of effort into sort of the growth of that business, as we see it as a key part of our business going forward. Not to mention that the standards come from there, right? It's what we collectively hold ourselves to. The vast majority of individuals in Hoxton come from the UK. So there is that sort of standard and then that expectation. That's the standard that we ordinarily follow, considering also our clients are from there. And then also then touching on then the US finally, where we started out as a state-regulated entity with the Texas State Securities Board. And then we then hit the certain AUM threshold, which then we were considered a large firm. And then we then had to flick into federal regulation and registration being with the Securities and Exchange Commission in the US. I know it's quite a mouthful.
Well, it's lucky that you...
My jaw hurts from saying that.
It's lucky that you built it out, isn't it? Imagine having to come in and have to deal with all that. You wouldn't. No one would do that, would they?
Yeah.
You would be one at a time, and you'd kind of grow as you go. Thank you so much for that overview, because I think a lot of people don't probably understand all of that. So I think that's a really great educational piece for those listening. And it also shows that we hold ourselves to a high standard. We are being regulated here at Hoxton. And that's hugely important, because there's an image in there and a view, if you like, of international global advice. It's just a load of people knocking out products in the bedrooms, That's not the case here. There's a whole team dedicated to the compliance side of things as well. Tell us about that. Where are your team based? Who have you got working with you? How many people?
Sure. I think close to 12 direct reports now, I believe. So we try and operate similar to like the Emirates, Emirates Airlines, a kind of a hub and spoke kind of a model, in that we have a large chunk of our sort of technology built and from this perspective from here, a lot of the administrative back office resources here. And then that's then sort of farmed out to the individual entities, and each entity typically has a compliance officer associated to them.
Yeah.
We've also started to grow out those functions to support the individual compliance officers in those jurisdictions. So, as an example, so people in the UK would ordinarily be familiar with file reviewers.
Yeah.
Quality assurance officers. To try and maintain the standard of advice that is going out the door to clients. And we've now essentially duplicated that model in Australia, which is also of really high standard and expectations around advice and the suitability of the advice that's being given there. So as we expand in the different regions, we have to then obviously resource it appropriately. I've luckily also brought on a chap who is understands the international environment, on par with me, and really helps sort of support those little moving parts that sort of happen here and there. And then we've also recently hired a new SMF 16, 17, so senior management function for compliance and AML or MLRO in the UK. So really looking forward to getting her in and help that massive expansion project that we have on the go in the UK.
Fantastic. Good. So lots of well-qualified, experienced, intelligent people used to being able to manage multi-jurisdiction and licenses in different countries.
I'd definitely say that compliance personnel within our organisation are definitely some of the most qualified within the business. I mean, even if you look at the quality assurance individuals, they tend to sort of be pension transfer specialist kind of qualified to be able to review and understand the suitability of that advice and even train, right? Yeah. So you'd have the first and the second line of defence, and the feedback loop that's involved in that. From the file review perspective to the advice and paraplanners.
Yeah, it's full on. I couldn't do. I understand what compliance do. I find it's like it'd be so much responsibility, like on your shoulders. Like it would keep me awake at night. I don't think I could do a job like that. It would stress me out. What do you do to like chill out and not let it stress you? Is there a certain way that you think? Because we talked a minute ago, didn't we? We talked about head and heart, didn't we? Do you follow your head? Do you follow your heart? How do you get through those types of...
Well, it can get stressful.
Yeah.
I think probably the most stressful was when we had ASIC in Australia, the FCA, the SEC in the US, as well as ESCA here, running concurrent, supervisionary visits. That was really, really sort of stressful, trying to sort of manage all the moving parts for that, the deadlines. It was quite intense. But it's one of those ones where I think you have to have a naturally sort of tough sort of skin, and also sort of dogged determination and drive to sort of drive that forward. Almost water for ducks back kind of a thing. When it comes to compliance, ordinarily one does need to be very analytical and technical and logical. But at the end of the day, we're also human beings, right? We also have our own wants and desires and aspirations, and you also have to make decisions with the heart, right?
Spot
risk
on,
taking,
mate.
right?
Spot on. And I think having that regulatory scrutiny that you went under is only going to make you stronger when you come through, right? You learn a huge amount about yourself and the business and the people around you.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It's whenever we have regulatory inspections, and compared to our first one, which I remember going through, and that was really stressful because you didn't know what to expect, right? Having never been through one before, particularly say with the FCA. You're now having been through it, I kind of see the purpose and the reasons for it. It's not to caught you out kind of a thing, and we're not gonna slap you around. It's like trying to keep the firms honest, right, and to learn and grow and develop and change their systems and controls. Keep that oversight. I mean, that's what regulation is, supervising the firms, right. Same way that you'd have a supervisor in an organization, you're a manager, you're going to have someone that's got an eye over you. Are you doing the job correctly? Yes. Make some corrective changes here. That's essentially what it is. It's just, the countries are trying to, protect their financial systems and their citizens and the residents, and that's how they go about doing it.
Does sound like a bit of a regulatory, compliance headache, really. Having to manage all those different jurisdictions and all the clients that are moving around as well. Because obviously you're dealing with locals within those countries, and then they might become an expat. So you might have a US client that then becomes an expat of the US and moves to the UK, and then goes and moves to Australia or whatever, right? That's an example. How are you managing that? And they're moving all around. You're having to ensure that the advice is given is correct and everything. And I understand that. But tech-wise, do you lean into technology as a business to be able to help support you on that?
I mean, I think that technology is going to be an ever-growing component of our business, as well as the industry, to be fair. I think that if firms, there was always an argument that technology would never replace, the human-to-human relationship that, exists within, financial advice, right? What we view it as yes, particularly for the high net worth sort of individuals, that's very true. But we can augment that with technology. We can augment that relationship. We can create efficiencies. We can provide insights that are quicker, more easily accessible. But then you can also use the technology to service the individuals who might not have a large chunk that sort of can't pay a minimum fee of £1,000 a year. It just doesn't make sense, right? And is that treating them fairly? And in regards to the consumer duty sort of element, probably not. So is there scope for potential simplified advice using technology? Yes. And similarly, we look at how we can use technology within the business itself from a compliance perspective. How do we make it easy for advisors to deliver good quality advice with the checks and balances that would make us comfortable having that advice go out to a consumer? Is it appropriate? How do we make sure that it's appropriate? And then also, how do we decrease costs and create efficiencies within the business from that sort of perspective? So technology has a massive place, I think, in our industry going forward.
Where are you stepping into next? Where's the next sort of place you're going where your new bit of learning is going to be coming on board? Maybe a new country? Is there anything exciting on the cards?
I really hope that we consolidate what we have at the moment. I think that we're really well positioned at the moment to really take advantage of what we have. I think that when we identify something and a new license, a new opportunity, we'll definitely sort of, pull the handbrake off and, really go for it. Whether it be asset management, whether we decide to, hold client money and create a platform, whether we, look at Canada or Singapore or New Zealand or Hong Kong. Those are all, I think, within the scope. I think we're in a consolidation phase of saying, okay, well, how do we really drive value for ourselves, our internal and external sort of stakeholders across the business? How do we drive that sort of value? How do we increase our value proposition so that we give to clients? And once again, we're investing heavily in technology, and I think that that's going to be a big driver for us going forward in the service that we sort of offer to clients. I think that's the frontier that we're going to be pushing into, is that through our technology solutions such as wealth flow, how do we enable clients to learn from the insights and action the insights that we give them through that? That's the next frontier, I think.
So for financial planners listening to this now, and they're in the UK, right? From a compliance perspective, you understand what they can and what they can't do. So what's like a benefit to a financial planner in the UK joining an international firm, but let's say remaining in the UK? Run through really what that opens them up to in respect of opportunity.
One of the elements that we've looked at and understood, having spoken to other firms within the UK, is a lot of them actually end up having, books of clients that they can't actually even service, right? Because the clients have now moved offshore to, like, say, Dubai, and legally they can't service those individuals because they're based upon residence, right? So now they're receiving fees they can't service. They have to switch off the fees, and now they just have these clients that are sat there that they can't do anything with. Whereas our proposition, it actually started more from here, where where our advisors would build up a book of clients, and then suddenly the transient nature of the UAE, the clients are moving back to the UK. And slowly but surely over time, your book of clients is essentially going to dissolve in front of your eyes. So it's a constant then having to find new clients. Whereas if you're in, say, the UK, typically it would be very sticky as long as you're servicing your clients correctly. How do we prevent that scenario from happening for advisors here, and how do we protect their books of business? Well, let's open up an office in the UK, so there's a continuity, for our advisors, but also sort of for our clients, right? I remember when I was, when I told my dad I was joining the industry, he was a bit hesitant. He's like, "Oh, financial advisors," Unfortunately, sort of even back then, we had a bad rep kind of a thing. But I think it's generally a historical thing of mis-selling, I think, across the Western world, from the 80s and early 90s kind of a thing. But he went through so many financial advisors, right? If you find one, you want to try and keep them, no matter where you might be in the world, right? And what we then offer then for a UK advisor is, your clients are moving offshore. They might not want to stay in the UK. They might also want to, expand their horizons and see a different world, have a different life. But you now have that opportunity to continue to service them, right? And for an advisor living in the UK, if you also wanted to expand your horizon, you could do the same thing, right? Become licensed in the US, and start dealing with Brits in the US. You might bump into a US individual in London. They might have US assets, which and pension assets, which they can't even manage because the advisors in the US don't have the ability to do so. So it's about creating a kind of an ecosystem where it empowers the client to stick with an advisor and have continuity, and empowers the advisor to really expand their horizons.
I like that. Yeah, you're a financial planner in the UK. Why not be an international financial planner in the UK?
Yeah,
it's kind of like, it's just growing, isn't it? It's growing your client base. It's growing your opportunity. It's moving in the way that the world's moving, which is people are moving around. We're better connected. It opens up your connections, so you can be. It's what I like. Moving to Dubai, working for Hoxton International. For someone like me, it's like whoa, because it's just like my brain just opens. I'm already doing stuff.
Amazing.
I'm doing stuff in the US already with professional football players, and then I'm going to go bust into professional sports in the US because I've learned about the P1 visas and about the amount of visas that you can have for professional sports or entertainers in the US per soccer team, for example, or basketball team. I think it's like 7. I even learned that they can trade those visas between teams.
Wow.
So, for example, if someone's coming from the UK to play soccer,
Football for our British.
Football for our British dudes. If they come over there and do that, then there's an opportunity for me to go, right, well, what are you doing after football? Do you want to become a financial planner and come and work with us over in New York? And that's exactly what I've done. And now I've got this kind of cool footballer who's got really great connections, and I'm really excited about helping him be a Trojan horse for getting into soccer professional sports out there, not only to give advice, but to also attract talent into our business. And that would never have happened. And in my head, I've always had an idea in my head that I love the idea of smashing into the US. I mean, it's a huge opportunity in the US. It's massive. The wealth over there is insane. And also, the average age of the advisor out there is the same. It's like it's dropping. So like 50% of their advisors are dropping. So it's because of the age. So the wealth is insane. The opportunity out there is insane. So when I started delving a bit deeper into that and speaking to like Bradley out there and Chris about it, their eyes lit up, my eyes lit up, and it was like, oh man, like a whole different part of my thinking was there. So I think if you're an expansive thinker, you're a growth mindset individual, I think going international and just building it out and building out your knowledge and building out your opportunities is only going to be exciting.
Yeah.
And also, like, I could have worked for a UK-based firm, right? And it would have been UK. Culturally, from a financial planning perspective, the UK isn't, it's a bit, dare I say, it's not coming across well. I feel it's a bit flat, right? It needs a bit of energy. Whereas internationally, I could take a photo of that. I can take a photo of me on the beach.
Yeah.
You know, I could fly out to New York and take a photo in New York, South Africa, Cape Town, whatever. And people are going to be like emotionally connected to the journey because we intrinsically want to explore as human beings, right? And it's like exciting. So for me, the story and the brand is exciting. So why can't the journey for a financial planner be exciting as well?
The one thing I realized about my jump from South Africa is that, you know, once you're in an environment, you know, the walls are kind of around you, right?
Yeah.
You know, you can't really see out of it. But as soon as you leave, you know, you see, oh, wow, the world's actually a lot bigger.
Yeah.
You really see the opportunity that is really out there. And you can look in every corner of the world and there's opportunity. You know, it's almost like sort of the limits on your brain have been, you know, pulled off and ripped away. You know, so from that perspective, it's amazing.
I like it. It's like I live in Bristol, and then when I work at home on my own in Bristol, and then I go to London. As soon as I drive into London, there's an energy. You know, people are doing deals, people are connecting. You can feel the connection. You know, and I can feel that in Dubai. Like there is an energy.
Yeah.
Like people want to do well. People want to get ahead. There isn't a system in place to support people that don't. You know, you can't be on the dole here, can you? You know, there is no support system.
It's hyper-capitalist is what it is.
Hyper-capitalist. Yeah, it's hyper. I love that. And I think capitalism or being a capitalist has negative connotations, right? Everybody wants to be a kind of, I want to do like 4-day work week or 3-day work week. It isn't like that here. I suppose it probably is for some people. You can have a lifestyle that you want once you've achieved it, right? For me here, it's about opportunity. And again, I feel things. I'm quite empathic, and I'm here, and it's like everybody feels like they want to grow. Everybody feels like we want to improve and get ahead. And it is capitalist, but I'm okay with that, you know? And I'm at a stage of my life where I'm accepting of that. I'm not looking to take my foot off the gas. I'm looking to put my foot down in my 40s and enjoy it.
Everyone that's here is here for a reason. To work, to make something better of themselves, to, you know, take an opportunity and run with it, right? You're not going to come out of, you know, sleepy town in South Africa and try and sort of live the same life that you live there here, right? The same thing in the UK. You're not going to try and live the same life that you lived in the UK here.
Yeah.
You know, so the people that would be on the dole that didn't really want to work, they want to work 4 days a week, you know, they won't come here because that's not
what they want,
what they're out. So this is a unique place and it collects people of that like-minded drive, that like-minded, I want to be better, I want better in my life.
It's not just, but like I learned, I've learned this week, it's been really interesting actually. I had an infection on my finger. I almost think it was a sign, right? Again, to go and have a look at what the services are like out here. I walked to a medical centre on the corner. There's like medical centres, right, on loads of corners with doctors in them and all sorts. Straight in, no appointment. My finger was so infected. They drained it all. They did everything, gave me antibiotics, everything, within about an hour.
Yeah.
And it was clean, it was efficient, and it was friendly. And yeah, I paid some money to do it, but I was like, oh my God, that was like so good. So you got that
Hassle-free.
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 Hassle-free. So you got that. I told you about the school, and I'm just like, wow, this, like, there is a different level, you know. And I think in England, and I don't want to bash England because I love England, you know, it's kind of not, you know, you could earn a load of money there and you get taxed to bollocks. Like, you know, they tax the hell out of you. Everyone's getting fed up with it.
I think that everyone knows it could be better, right?
It could be so much better. The system's
so much
broken. And like, you look at the system here, and look, there are negatives to this place,
There's
right?
pros and cons everywhere.
There's pros
no
and
matter
cons.
where you live.
Yeah, but at the stage of my life of where I am and what I want from it, which is quality of life, interesting work, money, right? Good schooling for my daughter, healthcare, bit of sunshine, things to do. It's like ticks boxes for me.
I mean, like you can hop on a plane and, 3 hours later you're in Sri Lanka,
Yeah.
or
Mauritius.
4 hours you're in, Maldives, or, you can go to the Caucasus, you can go to Africa, you can go, it's so easy to get places from here that, like, from a lifestyle travel perspective, it's amazing. And I was wanting to mention the fact that, we have young people that are coming in and, you see people on the internet living careers and, living a digital nomad lifestyle.
Yeah.
Our business model and our, the digitization that sort of we've experienced with an organization following COVID really, have enabled people to sort of be that. You can live that. You don't have to be bound to your area in the UK and advising sort of people. You can actually be a digital nomad. You can set up shop in Bali, and you can, speak to people in Australia, and you can speak to people in, Southeast Asia, Dubai, the US, wherever it is. You can continue that, but you can live a digital nomad lifestyle.
Oh man, the financial planner nomad.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool, isn't it? Like, I wonder if someone would, you could literally create a digital nomad business.
Yeah.
Financial planning, digital nomad business. You could be known as that person. And like, again, right, so you're traveling around giving advice to different types of clients in different jurisdictions. I know it'd be quite difficult because you have to fly all here, there, and everywhere. It's not as easy as that. But again, marketable as hell, isn't it? I'm always thinking it from a brand perspective, what it looks like. And, it's like when you go onto Instagram and you've got those guys that just go off traveling everywhere and take amazing videos, and you think, what a life. I mean, why can't you do that? Like,
Why not?
Yeah, like, it's kind of cool, especially if you're doing it on social media, building an audience that then thinks, well, I want my advice from the digital nomad. I'm in South Africa and he's based there at the moment. I'll reach out, especially got loads of followers and everything. So it's a really, really interesting model. And again, on a kind of micro scale, I suppose, that's essentially what I want to do here. I want us to be that company.
Yeah.
And that's how I want us to be seen. So that's why, again, I'm excited by it. And knowing that I'm coming into the business, it's got interesting people like you in there that know exactly what you're doing, brilliant advisors in there, good qualifications, great leaders, great leadership team, digital tech teams, etc. To me, just fills me with confidence. So, well, listen, I'm going to bring this to a close right now, but thank you so much for sort of sharing your journey.
Thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome. And I'm sure we'll create more content around yourself, your journey, the great work you're doing at Hoxton Capital in respect of compliance. So really, really appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Awesome.
Nice
Thank
one,
you very
dude.
much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, nice one.